Hi, this is Brett Ingram, award-winning entrepreneur, and today I have an important question to ask you. Do you believe you deserve success? So, have you ever known someone who you felt was just far more successful than really they deserve to be? Somebody who maybe you didn't really think was that smart or maybe not that motivated. They didn't really seem to have that much on the ball. And yet, for one reason or another, everything seems to work out. All the lights are green. Every single thing that they do seems to be successful. They happen to be in the right place at the right time all the time. They're super lucky. I'm not talking about people that have stepped into things in terms of like inheritance and stuff like that. I mean people that actually, deserve the credit. They've actually created it on their own, but it just is sort of confusing as to how they could be successful. You can't quite understand when you talk to them what it is that would make them be so successful at what they're doing. And then on top of that, maybe, all the other things in their lives work out too. They get the inheritance on top of everything, and then maybe, they've got the kid who not only could they afford to pay through college, but the kid gets an academic scholarship so they could go for that, and an athletic scholarship too. So they've got literally every single thing they could ever want or need, and they seem to go through life like it's a playground without any sort of concept of how difficult or hard it can be. And it's sort of head-scratchingly confusing, right? Because it's not that we don't like them. It's not that it's not that they're not good people or whatever, but it's just sort of head-scratchingly confusing because we don't understand why or how they could reach that level of success. And then what about if we sort of look at it the other way? Do you know anybody who's maybe far less successful than they should be? They work their tail off. I mean, somebody that like every time you see them, they're working. They don't hang out or do a lot of social things because they're always working. They're always trying to get ahead. They're really smart. You talk to them and you feel like, wow, they really know what's going on. They're motivated, so they've got goals. They're driven. But for one reason or another, maybe they're successful enough or they're doing okay, but they just can't seem to catch a break or get the big breakthrough. Bad stuff tends to happen to them, and it sort of tends to be kind of fluky. And so, maybe they've achieved some success, but when we compare the two, we've got one who's sort of just life is their playground and yet everything seems to work out. The other person is trying to bend life to their will and can't quite seem to make it go. And it makes no sense. It certainly seems far less than fair, right? Well, I can tell you that I've known many of both, many, many, many of both. Over the years, I've had the good fortune to meet lots of different people in lots of walks of life. And I have to admit that I myself was in the second category. I always considered myself to be a really hard worker, and it's not my own opinion. Empirically, I've had times in my life where I've worked 16 hours a day, where I've done everything I felt was right, where I've made all the decisions I thought made sense. And then sometimes it was things outside of my control, or sometimes it was, other factors that affected me. And sometimes it was myself. Sometimes I made mistakes and couldn't figure out how I could have ever made that mistake or not foreseen the issues that were going to arise. But for a long time, I just never felt like my results were representative or fair based on how hard I worked or my natural talents. I mean, can you relate to that? Is that ever a feeling that you've had, or do you know someone who's ever been in that situation where you feel like, you work a lot harder than a lot of the people that you know, yet for whatever reason, you just can't seem to really get ahead? And so for me anyway, what I always did, my answer was always, okay, well, it's going to work out, right? So I just have to do more. I just have to find a way. If I have, this particular business and this particular income stream and it's not getting what I want and I can't find a way to scale it fast enough, then I just need to add another. And then I just need to add this thing and add that thing. And I just need to work more and do more. And my strategy was always try to outwork the problem, right? If I just put in more, then for sure, eventually it's going to pop, right? Things are going to work. and it's going to absolutely like naturally just all come together at some point. And I really believed that for a long time. And then out of frustration at one point, I stepped back and, I started to just look at things from sort of an outside perspective. And I said, what is the difference if I look at me and I look at, other people? And, I have somewhat of a background in personal growth, personal development. I've always had a fascination with that sort of industry. And so I'm aware of what some of the more popular people would say about, the power of belief and sort of expectation, and, Tony Robbins with his ideas of self-sabotage and all this. And you start to play tricks on yourself and in your mind, and you start to wonder, am I my own worst enemy? Am I creating these problems for myself? Or is this real? Is it something that there's nothing I could have done to avoid, and this is the way that it's been so far, but if I just keep going, I'll eventually get there. Obviously, when we get into a state mentally where we're confused, then we start being our own worst enemy and our mind starts to play tricks on ourselves. We start to wonder, is it something bigger than this? Is it something smaller than this? Am I missing a detail? Am I going about this the wrong way? Are the choices I'm making right? And it starts to become this really, really negative sort of feedback loop that's a very bad place to be. And so, I stepped back, and when I started to look at things from a different perspective, one of the things that I noticed was that I was always trying to be focused on preventing the worst from happening, right? So, you got bills to pay and you got this going on and everything else. So all I need to do is make sure that no matter what I do, like this minimum works. I'm always focused on like the minimum and making sure that the floor, that the bottom that can happen isn't catastrophic. And there's logic in that. It obviously makes sense. Nobody wants to be in a disastrous situation. So we want to prevent the worst from happening. I mean, even Warren Buffett said, when he makes a deal, somebody asked him, what he does is the minute that he's made the deal, he no longer worries about it anymore. He just gets to work to make sure the worst doesn't happen. He considers what the worst thing that could happen. And if he can live with that if it happens, he goes forward with the deal. And from that moment forward, all he does is work hard to make sure that the worst doesn't happen. I totally get it. I mean, it's a great philosophy, right? But I was so focused on that, and I was not focused on the full possibilities. I mean, they were there. I intellectually knew them. They were in the back of my mind. But I wasn't focused on trying to unlock that or looking at the horizon. I was looking at the floor. And it's kind of a bleak way to go through life, to be honest. I mean, you get to a point where the excitement of what you're doing, even as an entrepreneur, drains out of what you're doing. And it becomes more of a chore. It becomes more of a source of stress than a source of freedom or a source of excitement for what, the next chapter of your life is going to be, or the kind of things you're going to be able to create. And that's a really bleak way to go through life. But I fell into that sort of by default. But also, the other really negative and destructive thing that it does is it conditions ourselves to accept less. We now say, it's okay. I know what the floor is, and as long as it's above the floor, that's okay, because I can survive on that. I can live on that. So even the process of running a business and being an entrepreneur became less fun. And it ultimately was not what I wanted. I had days where I was just yearning for a regular job. I had days where I wished that I had just gone the traditional route like everybody else, because I'm smart enough, I'm educated enough. I mean, if I had just gotten a job and done my job somewhere, I'd probably be, reasonably successful at whatever I did, and I'd have all this lack of stress. Now, of course, we know that's all a mirage and illusion anyway. My father did that. And after 25 years at his company, he got laid off. So he did everything right. He was a great worker. He always had 5-star reviews. He got laid off anyway. So all that security is an illusion anyway. But the worst part about it is you're looking around, and when I'm seeing other people crushing it. I mean, they're doing so well. Everything looks like it's so easy. One of the things that I realized is they weren't considering that. They weren't looking at the floor and what the worst that could happen is. Now, you might say that's foolhardy, And, the smart thing to do is always consider the worst. I agree. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't their focus. They might have considered it, but what they were doing was they were focusing on what they could gain. They were focusing on where the sky was going to take them. And they seemed happier just in general. They had a much more relaxed demeanor. They were a lot less stressed. They felt a lot less pressure to constantly be working. And ultimately were more successful. I mean, if I'm being honest, they were ultimately more successful. So what I decided to do is I said, you know what, look, I'm not going to stop working hard. That's just who I am. But at the same time, I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to change my mindset from conditioning myself to focusing on what's the lowest that can happen and being okay with accepting that, to focusing on all the good stuff that I did, all the good stuff I've done, all the good stuff I'm capable of, all the traits that I have that are positive, and all the potential that I have. And I'm going to tell myself every single day how much I deserve success. I'm going to focus on my skills. I'm going to focus on my talents. I'm going to focus on all my positive traits. And I'm just going to feed my mind with that over and over and over. And I'm going to constantly reinforce that to myself continuously. By the way, regardless of how good or bad things are going today. Some days when this was, happening, I had great days, so it was really easy. I could look myself in the mirror and tell myself all these good things, and it was easy to believe because things were going well. But I had days where everything was falling apart, and it's a lot harder to do that. But my goal was to develop a mindset of belief that I deserve success and have confidence that doing that would affect my perspective, my energy, the decisions that I make, my outlook, my results. And I gotta be honest, it absolutely worked. It absolutely worked. It took time and it took consistency, especially if we're hard on ourselves, especially if we're in a negative place. It's not easy to develop this habit, and it takes, it actually is easy, but it's difficult to can do it consistently, because on days that are good, it's easy. But on bad days, it was hard to even tell myself the good stuff. But I knew how important it was to do that anyway in order to build it into a habit and make it unbreakable in my consciousness. So I did it anyway. I forced myself to say all those good things, and I forced myself to do it over and over again until it actually affected the way I felt. So I wouldn't just say the word, I would actually get into the mental state and make sure that I felt the emotion of being powerful, of being strong, of feeling great, of being successful, and all those other things. And I did it every single day. Sometimes multiple times a day. You get punched in the mouth later in the day in your business, things are going terrible, do it again. And keep reinforcing that over and over and over. And I have to say, it's amazing now to see the possibilities and the opportunities in everything that I'm doing. And to be able to recognize all the good things that happen every day instead of all the problems. Instead of that sort of broken record that plays in our head that says, oh, why does this always happen to me? Oh, of course this happened. It's terrible. How awesome is it instead to be like, wow, I can't believe that happened today. Something great is going to happen to me today, and then it does. And so to be able to focus on the possibilities, all of a sudden we see things in a different light. But here's the thing. I don't think it's just mental. It's not that, oh, everything is exactly the same, but now I just have a smile on my face instead of a frown. That's not it. That's part of it, for sure. I see more good than I did. I see less bad than I did, but literally better things, more profitable things, things that I was totally unexpecting. Unexpected miracles, if you want, have actually happened since I've started doing that. Because I think what ends up happening is we do program ourselves with our self-talk. So that can either enslave us or it can empower us, depending on how we treat ourselves. So this is not just some mumbo jumbo about, positive self-talk that ultimately makes us feel better even though the world's falling apart. This is beyond just the touchy-feely stuff. There are real ways that the power of belief impacts us. It impacts our motivation and our persistence. When we believe in ourselves and in the possibility of success, that fuels our motivation and perseverance. When we don't have that, we're quicker to give up. We're quicker to just say, you know what, I guess that's not working, and pull the plug when maybe we were right around the corner from the breakthrough. When we believe in our abilities and the likelihood that we can achieve our goals, we're more likely to put in the effort that's required to succeed, even when we're faced with the obstacles and setbacks. We're going to work through them. That's real. That's real. That's not just touchy-feely mumbo jumbo. It's also going to affect our positive mindset. When we believe in success, it fosters a positive mindset. A positive mindset already been empirically proven to enhance our creativity, our problem-solving abilities, and our resilience, which again are all super important traits for entrepreneurs that actually make a legitimate, tangible difference in the businesses that we run. A positive outlook can help us remain focused on our goals and maintain our optimism during challenging times. So that way we attract the right opportunities that align with our beliefs instead of letting that defeat us and make us crumble. The other element of it is ultimately all of this sort of belief and the power of belief really is and can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we believe, there's the old saying, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And that's really powerful. It's really simple, but it is profound that it is true. The concept of the self-fulfilling prophecy tells us that our beliefs about ourselves and our capabilities influence our behavior in a way that confirms those beliefs. So if we believe that we're capable of achieving a certain level of success, then we're going to go and do the behaviors and the things that we need to do we're going to make the choices that lead to that outcome. If we believe that we can't do it, if we don't believe that we're worthy of success or we're capable and that it's only for other people, we are going to make bad decisions and we are going to do things that sabotage the success that we're trying to create, despite the fact that we're working so hard. So yes, we still need to work hard, but we also need to believe that we're going to be able to do it. It's also going to affect our risk-taking and our innovation. When we believe in the possibility of success, that will encourage us to take calculated risks and pursue innovative ideas that we otherwise would be afraid of. We wouldn't want to risk any money or capital or any sort of other assets on things that were speculative if we have a negative mindset and don't believe we're going to be able to make it work. When we do and we have confidence in our abilities and the potential rewards for what we're doing, we're far more likely to step outside our comfort zones and explore new opportunities. Look at all the stories of the amazing entrepreneurs and the things that they've accomplished and how many of them have that common thread of, their back was against the wall, they were living out of their car, like they had nothing. They spent their last $1,000 to buy a plane ticket to go to this conference that changed their life, whatever it is. There's story after story after story, and there's a reason for it. But it's also going to affect our resilience in the face of failure. When we believe in our eventual success, we understand that any kind of setback we've got, we can bounce back from that. It's temporary. We're not viewing setbacks as permanent or insurmountable obstacles. They're just temporary setbacks on the path to eventual success, and they're ultimately great stories we're going to be able to tell about how rocky the road was and how we overcame it anyway. So that resilience allows us to learn from our failures, adapt our strategies, and continue moving forward instead of letting it defeat us and question whether or not we really deserve it. It's also going to go above and beyond ourselves. The power of belief has an influence on other people. When we have a belief in success, that can influence how others perceive us and also other people interact with us. It's also going to affect our ability to get partners, get financing. When someone has a belief in something, we've all been around someone that just has that infectiousness with the way that they operate. And you just want to be around it. You want to be part of it. So whatever you can do to do that, we're going to do it. That confidence and conviction inspires trust and it attracts support from our peers, our mentors, our collaborators, creating opportunities for networking, mentorship, collaboration, partnership, all of that stuff. So overall, the power of belief plays a crucial role in shaping our attitudes, behaviors, and outcomes, and ultimately influences the level of success that we can achieve in our personal and our professional lives. So the takeaway here is go on a mental diet of all good stuff. Eat your mental vegetables. Think of a handful of positive, empowering, reinforcing things that you can say to yourself every single day and actually do it every single day, multiple times a day, until it becomes a habit that's as strong as steel and part of your absolute core belief system. If you're normally hard on yourself, this is even more important to start doing this today and never stop. Every day from this day forward can be the start of that turning point for you. And if you keep telling yourself about all the great things that you've done and you're determined and destined to do in the future, you'll develop an unbreakable power of belief in what you've really known all along, but were holding yourself back from, that you deserve success.